Chris Speaks here tonight with my man Chris Bahakis for our Saturday prognostications. Hopefully, we do a little bit better than we did last week. How's it going, man?
It's going well.
So I just wanted to run something by you. So I
Mm-hmm.
was looking at some stats today.
Mm-hmm.
At this point in their career, at their same level, Jimbo Fisher is 2 games below what Kevin Sumlin's record was.
I saw that. I saw that. Yeah.
Um,
Pretty similar. Yeah.
Jimbo has also not lost to a ranked team on the road. Now I want to go back and check that again because uh, you know, and make sure I didn't miss, or I may have quoted that wrong, but it was a weird stat
Yeah.
like that. Um, Now, barring a total collapse and finishing 5-7, I don't think he's going to get fired because they would owe him $77 million. By the time you went and paid him and his assistants off, bought out another coach, brought in his assistants, paid his salary, you're looking at a $250 million coaching change.
Yeah. I just don't see. I just all depends on what A&M wants. I don't really see the grit and determination in Jimbo Fisher to win a championship. Uh, just watching him and his demeanor on like the sidelines, it's just not. It's not. I don't feel that
He don't have
he
the fire in his
cares
belly.
that. Yeah. Huh?
He don't have the fire in his belly.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not seeing it. I think that.
I see. Now that you mentioned that too.
Yeah, I
And
don't. I don't know. I mean, and like we always talk about, I think it always goes back to what the what the school wants. Do they care a lot about um do they care a lot about winning championships, or are they just trying to keep the school healthy? I don't know.
I think they want to win championships. I mean, because they've got all the ingredients, man. You've got a
Hmm.
rabid fan base. You got a huge stadium.
Yeah.
The student body, students are involved in it. You got a lot of cool pregame tradition things they do. Um, you know, uh, you've got great recruiting. I mean, the tools are there, but it just seems like a fool's errand. Nobody can succeed. I mean,
Hmm.
where do you go from there if you get rid of Jimbo?
Hmm.
All right, so I want to go to another coach.
Hmm.
We're talking about firing Pittman. I mean, do you
I
fire this guy?
wouldn't. I wouldn't
I wouldn't
because
either.
he's done what so many of his predecessors couldn't do, and that is to go out and even though he's losing these games, he's embarrassing these teams. So he's embarrassing the teams, whereas before he got there, Arkansas was embarrassing themselves.
Well, you know what I'm
So
impressed with about it is,
what?
they've lost 4 or 5 close games now,
Hmm.
but a lot of teams would roll over and die. That team has not quit
Just
fighting,
keep
and
going, yeah.
they have not given up. So that shows me a lot about what type what he's instilled in that program. Um, you know,
It
um,
made me interested enough to watch them. Like tomorrow, their opening game, 11 a.m. Mississippi State. I'm excited to see it.
um, let's I almost got messed up there. Let's go talk about a couple other coaches. You think Shane Beamer's on the hot seat?
Where does he coach again? Is
South
he at
Carolina.
Virginia Tech? That's what. Oh, all right. You know, for
See,
the
I thought Muschamp
last,
was a bad
eh,
fire.
for the last, when was it 2010 when South Carolina beat Alabama?
Yeah.
Um, Pretty much ever since then, they have the big win over Alabama, and then they drop a few after that, so they don't really do anything. But
Well, that
pretty
was
much,
the year he started his run. He went to SEC championship game that year,
Uh-huh.
and then
Uh-huh.
had 3 straight 11-2s.
Wait,
And
no,
now
they didn't go. They didn't go to the SEC championship that year, or did
in
they? Yeah,
2010,
that's
yeah,
right. They're in the East. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Stop.
Arkansas blew them
Um,
out. But
yeah.
South Carolina fans are
Um,
now expecting to be to that 11-2
but
every year competing.
but I feel like ever since that year, it it's always been this is going to be the year for South Carolina. This is the year. This is the year. Next year. It's always next year. Always next year. And I mean, I
I think
can't
they're
even
seven and
really.
five team, man.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. They're 2-4 right now.
I mean,
I
I just don't.
mean,
I think their expectations are too high. I mean, what Spurrier did with
yeah,
those 4 years were phenomenal, but I don't think you can maintain that at South Carolina. I just don't. I mean, 8-4, 7-5. I think that
they have played some very difficult games, and they're not getting blown out. They opened the season with North Carolina, who's turned into a top 10 team. Or
some
wait,
people
I guess
actually
they've
have them
dropped
in the.
since they lost. Yeah. Um, no, hung with Georgia for a minute. Barely beat Mississippi State. Got pretty bad by Tennessee, and then dropped one to Florida by 3 points.
What do you think, the Florida coach, Billy Napier? You think he's safe?
I think it'll depend on next year. So this year was a year that they had some quality wins, and but they I feel like they should have been able to beat Kentucky if they could beat Tennessee and South Carolina. I wonder if they were just high off their win at Tennessee and just fumbled. Um,
Now,
now
and you
he's got some good proving grounds. He's got Georgia still on the schedule, uh, and then he's got Arkansas, LSU, Florida State. So I mean, that's one of the toughest schedules in football, I think.
yeah, most
So,
definitely.
but
Now,
they're
let
but
me ask
they're
you
what did we say they were 2-4 now?
this. Yeah, he could be.
They're gonna end up being 6-6, I think, because they're
Now,
not gonna beat Georgia. They're not gonna beat Georgia, and honestly, I think
oh,
Arkansas will have a good shot against them.
oh, I do too.
Uh,
Now,
yeah.
I don't know if you've seen this story, but why Kiffin commented on it to give it legs, I don't know. But there is a guy put up this article. Kiffin's coaching career hangs on them beating Auburn Saturday. If they don't beat Auburn, they're saying he'll be fired and his coaching career will be over. Um, I and then Kiffin, comments on it and gives yeah. I don't think that. First of all, I don't think they're going to lose to Auburn, but
Well, yeah,
um,
I don't think they will either. But that is a case where he was brought in for one reason and one reason alone, to beat Alabama and to win an SEC championship. So if he hadn't delivered it here, what, 3 years later?
this
Is it
is
longer
fourth
than that?
season.
4 seasons? Yeah. So then I do think that would be a situation where they would part ways.
I don't know because
Hey,
Kiffin.
hold on 1 second. I gotta answer this call.
Okay,
I
go
might
ahead.
have to edit it out. Hello? I must have the wrong number.
Uh, I'll tell you. I'll cut this up. I don't think Kiffin's job's in. I mean, danger because I mean, obviously if he had a collapse and something like that, but Kiffin hiring did one thing. Even though he hasn't beaten Alabama yet, he did have that 10-win season. He's made Ole Miss seem relevant again. People are paying attention to the program and seeing what he can do there. I mean, can he get them to that next level? I mean, if he got a,
Well,
if he could beat
well,
Alabama.
Ole Miss. was pretty relevant. You know, people talked about them coming
but not
back.
like I'm not talking about their last coach. I mean, Ole Miss was kind of like, you know,
Oh yeah, before that, yeah.
yeah, Kiffin gave them some spark. So we've covered the hot seat coaches. What games do you want to talk about tomorrow? One I want to talk about is first. You know, we talked about the Pac-12. They've obviously overrated.
Mhm.
Is the big has the Big Ten stepped up? I mean, because you've got Michigan, you got number 3 Ohio State, number 7 Penn State going to play Saturday. I mean,
Mhm.
are those if they stepped up to the level that they're ready to compete with SEC?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'd
I
have
mean,
to see. I did look at this game, this Ohio State Penn State game on the schedule, and thought, man, that's going to be a big. Because I mean, Penn State is kind of another. I hate to always lay this on the table, but they're another just completely untested team. I mean, it's like their schedule is so weak, or at least to this point. But they'll get their chance. They got Ohio State and Michigan on the horizon. You know, if they beat both of them, then hey, you know, give them a spot. But but
I mean,
I
because
personally think Ohio will win that one.
I don't like to debate. You know, I hate comparing scores, but
Hmm.
I look at what Ohio State did to Notre Dame, and then what Notre Dame goes out and does to USC.
Hmm.
And if that's any gauge, that tells me that the Big Ten is playing better football than the Pac-12. And the Pac-12 has got a bunch of overrated teams.
Oh yeah. Well, I think the most overrated conference every year is always the Pac-12, and I mean they never have. I mean more than two legitimate teams. I heard somebody make the argument at the beginning of the season that they consider the overall conference of the Pac-12 to be the best conference in football, and this was their reasoning because there's a smaller talent gap between the last place team and the first place team than there is anywhere else. I'm like, that's not a good thing. You know, the reason that gap is short is because your 1 and 2 teams aren't that good, not because your lower teams just that great.
But you know,
So
I can remember a time in football when there was more parity. Like, you know, it on any given Saturday, one team could beat another. Um,
mhm.
in
And hey,
1980,
it can happen the same way here
or
now.
it was in 80 or 81, Alabama played Georgia Tech out at Legion Field,
Hmm.
and Georgia Tech beat Alabama. Alabama went on to finish 9-2-1, and I think win the SEC. Georgia Tech lost 10 straight games. I mean, you know, you're I don't think that. Yeah, there is definitely a discrepancy, but you know, you see your Arkansas is hanging with your top teams.
Yeah.
Um, but you don't see the upsets like you used to.
Yeah, they're pretty rare, aren't they?
Yeah, you think about it, man. You know, like when Texas A&M beat Alabama that year, they were ranked like 20th. You know, you wouldn't see something
Yeah.
like that going on now. I mean, you know, they
Well,
were showing.
part of that one is something I really don't like about college football is I hate that a loss on opening day can keep a team from going to the playoffs. I hate that for them, but especially when you play these tougher games. And if somebody does lose one in the opener,
Well,
it's
see,
like
I
their
hate a
season's
late
over
season
already,
loss.
you
I
know?
hate a
And
late season loss worse though. I mean,
huh?
suppose you. I hate a late season loss worse. I mean, think about some of these Alabama
Well,
LSU
yeah, but I'm
games.
saying there's no real margin grace given for improvement. Like
Right.
obviously you take the 2013 Auburn team They improved greatly throughout the season. They had some really ugly games at the beginning, and they improved tremendously
Yeah, that has
throughout
to
the
be the
season that year.
most phenomenal story of college football ever.
Mhm.
For a team to
But
go worse.
But that's just the thing about the ranking system. It gives you no margin for error. How many times did all those seasons that the Patriots won the Super Bowl and lost maybe one or two games during the regular season? They weren't getting straight up beat by another really good team. They were usually just losing it to a mediocre team. You know, it
Um,
it can
so
happen on any given Saturday.
yeah. Um, I forgot what question I was supposed to ask you. Was regarding that. Maybe it'll come to me in a second. Um, what games stick out to you tomorrow? So obviously, we'll save the best for last, but
Yeah, well, actually, one that caught my eye. We didn't really talk much about them head to head for Penn State and Ohio State. Um, that's it. Ohio State's got it at home. They're favored by 5. I don't know, man. I think
I
that
think we're Penn State in the game.
you think Penn State's gonna win?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go Ohio and covering, and I might even give them a couple more points on top of that.
Okay.
Maybe Ohio State by 7. Close game, but I think Ohio State wins. Um, let's see. So Ole Miss and Auburn, we already mentioned once. What are you feeling on that?
Auburn can't move the ball. It would be
Mhm.
like me trying to, my crippled self trying to move the ball up and down the field. They have no offense.
Now
Um,
they're only favoring Ole Miss by 6.5, which I think
I
is
think
pretty
it could be,
low. I
yeah,
think this is going to be a 3-score game.
I could see it getting
Mm.
to I could see it
Not
getting to
yeah, not 21, but just 3 score. Maybe
17.
11 to 17, somewhere in there.
Yeah,
But
I think Ole Miss, has that game.
I'll tell you the one that intrigues me over any of these, more over any of these others for tomorrow is Duke and Florida State,
Oh, me too, man. I
because I
think
want to know if Duke's for real, and
I
this is
do
how we'll
too.
find out.
I'm
Yeah,
hoping they come to play. I'd like to see that.
yeah. I'm curious. I want to know if Duke's for real.
I mean, because I'll get in this minute. We'll talk about who our top four is right now. But
Hmm.
anyway, what is any other game that sticks out at you? I don't,
I'm have some curiosity about Utah USC. Since
yeah,
we saw
that's a good thing.
USC go head to head with Notre Dame last week, this will be a good barometer to test both teams. Because Utah is another one of those that always kind of sneaks in to the top 10 by the end of the season. And, if they go and just handle USC, then we know, okay, they're legit. But if USC goes in and beats them, then after getting manhandled by Notre Dame last weekend, which I don't know how much of that coverage you've watched, but I mean, the announcers were even pointing out that how dominant
Oh,
Notre Dame was over the line of
yeah,
scrimmage.
good God.
It wasn't even like an. You can tell when you're just getting outplayed.
Oh
You're
yeah,
not having a
and
bad day, so you can't block. It's
yeah,
just
you can tell
there's
when they're better
yeah.
up front.
I'll give a quarterback, a kicker, and a receiver uh a grace period that they were off, because those are skills that require pinpoint accuracy, and if somebody's
But
head
up
isn't in
front,
the
when
right
they're getting
space,
manhandled,
yeah, yeah,
I
but
mean,
but come on, man.
they're moving you.
You never hear a lineman talk about not being in the right headspace. I'm sorry. They don't talk like that.
No, because that's, I mean, let's face
Yeah.
it, man, that is brutal combat in
Uh-huh.
those trenches. I mean, those guys are throwing elbows. I mean, these are. I mean, that's those are. I mean, those guys are fighting basically. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
mano a mano in there, and you see it. The team that imposes, that has the better line. And when they start blowing them off the ball, you can say one of those line of scrimmages. Um, so, do you want to jump into?
Um,
I do think Arkansas beats Mississippi State.
yeah, yeah. I think the win. I mean, I'm gonna be pulling for them hard. I think they'll win. No, I think we covered all of them except the main event.
Um, Alabama is an 8.5 point favorite, and the over under is 48. I think it's going to be hard for 48 points to be scored in that game.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if this was like a 13-7 game, honestly.
I was going to say the
Uh,
exact same thing. I could see this being
yeah.
16-13,
Mm-hmm.
16-10. Both of them have outstanding defenses. I could see this being that.
Mm-hmm.
I uh I I I think the Tide rolls.
Think so?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not not rolling blowing back, but I think they get it. I heard Saban asking the crowd to one time to be a factor in the game.
Mm-hmm. They certainly do that to us when we're on the road.
Well, yeah, that's one thing about Bryant Denny, man. It's not that intimidating of a place to play.
No,
I mean, when you
no.
think about the other stadiums out there, it's like our fans just don't get into it like some of the other schools do. And
I mean, when's the last time you were at an Alabama game?
man, the last Alabama game I went to was, I believe, DuBose was there, and I went and watched Alabama South Carolina play. And I used to go to about one game a season when I was a kid, but as I
Yeah.
got older, I didn't want to burn a whole Saturday missing football, to go.
Well, here's I've been to a lot of them, and the general atmosphere I get from Alabama fans it's very business casual. I mean, obviously not the students, but as far as the average Alabama fan,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is they aren't going to be the really loud,
I mean, when you
intense
compare it even to like
fans. I mean, it's
Jordan Hare,
very, very casual.
and I think Jordan Hare's a lot tougher place venue to play in than
Hmm.
Tuscaloosa.
Yeah,
Death Valley. I mean,
yeah.
what do you think? You think Death Valley's the toughest one to play in?
Didn't they cause an earthquake one time?
Okay,
Or they didn't call they set the seismograph in the or they're
I,
said to have said that the seismograph machine in their geology department registered during a game one time.
it was when they was playing Auburn,
Yeah.
and Auburn led 6-0, and it was 4th and goal from the 11-yard line, and Tommy Hodson completes a touchdown pass in the back of the end zone, and Auburn goes up, or LSU wins the game 7-6.
Mhm.
And one of the students had just went by to check it, but it was something about I can't remember how the story went now, but it was something about how the reading was just a little abnormal, but it really didn't set off an earthquake like they said it set off
Yeah.
one. But I remember watching that game too, man. That game probably kept Auburn out of the national championship that year because, I mean, 4th and goal from the 11, and they ran the exact same play twice. Um,
Hmm.
but there's been some other odd ones. Remember the fire game?
The fire game.
Yeah, they was playing in Jordan Hare, and they're like, one of those buildings caught on fire. There's just raging fire on campus.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I remember we're talking Auburn LSU, that one of my favorite ones is the one where they both lost. where I think LSU had won, but then they had to do a do-over for some reason. They had to redo the down. But I mean, so they won, they stormed the field, got the Gatorade bath. Wait a minute. No,
that's
there's
Tennessee.
no, that was it was Auburn and LSU.
Oh, that happened with Tennessee and LSU too, because Tennessee had
Yeah,
13 players on the field, and they stormed the field and it dumped
yeah,
Derek Dooley.
yeah.
Um,
And then yeah, they I can't remember what they did, that what they got called for on the penalty, but um then they had to replay it and Auburn won.
oh, I know what that's the game that got Les Miles fired.
Yeah.
I know what it was because LSU scored a touchdown,
Uh-huh.
and I think they had too many men on the field, and they had to back it up, and Auburn stopped them. That's the game you're talking about.
Yeah.
Um, there was and you're, I don't know if you was old enough to start keeping up football then, but it's when Bowden was there, and LSU was playing Auburn, and Auburn had like 108 yards of offense the whole game, and
Uh-huh.
they beat LSU 24-23 because LSU threw 6 interceptions, and 3 of them was returned for touchdowns. They just kept throwing the ball and kept throwing the ball and kept throwing the ball.
Wow. All
So I
right.
mean,
So
who's your?
what's your final word on Alabama, Tennessee?
I say Bama 17-13, 2017, something like that.
Yeah, I keep waiting for Alabama to just get it all together. We talked about this a little bit on the reaction show. Their lack of productivity in the second half, particularly the fourth quarter, is mind-boggling to me. But it's like the light just gets shut off on the offense after the opening drive in the third quarter, it feels like. And you know,
Well, one
I
guy
don't
I was talking to who's been really hard on Tommy Reese, and I said,
uh,
"Man, I think he's doing the best with what he has to work with." I mean,
yeah. Well, there's
he does.
also been some real boneheaded decisions, like kind of at the A&M game
Oh,
where
what was they doing with
they
a
all
minute
they had
22?
yeah,
I thought they were
they got the first down. They could have run the clock out. They were out of timeouts, and they threw a little pass, and I'm like,
They threw the ball
why are you?
flying.
Yeah, well, they threw the ball one time to go for the first down, which, hey, I dug that one. I'm like, let's get this first down and put this game on ice. And they got the first down. It's like, okay, now don't throw it, whatever you do. And what does he do? He throws the ball. And how that happens, I never heard anybody address it, but I don't know if Reese called that play or if Milrow audible to that play or what, but come on, that everybody and their grandma watching that game that day knew all they needed to do was kneel twice and they
Jimbo
won.
said that.
Yeah. And it just didn't make any sense. It's like, dude, what are you guys doing?
All right, who's your top four?
Okay, I'm keeping this has been my pick since like week 2 or 3, whenever we first talked about this. I'm keeping Florida State at number 1 until somebody shows me a reason not to. They're
Okay,
undefeated. They've been very convincing in their wins. They are, in my opinion, the best team in football right now.
okay,
I'm going to put Oklahoma at 2. Their offense just looked outstanding. And I know Texas has a great defense. Um, so I got to give Oklahoma all the credit in the world for
well,
for
not to cut
winning
you off, but
that game.
that was a big bounce back. I cannot believe they bounced back from a 5-6 season
Mm-hmm.
5 and
Yeah.
7 to do this. I mean,
Which I don't know
I
their
thought
story. Maybe they had a bunch of injuries last year. I don't know,
transfer portal.
but yeah, they got
They did it.
I'm digging them. I'll put them at number 2.
Okay.
I'm gonna put Georgia at number 3. I think the uh being the 2-time champions and probably are going to win the East pretty easily this year. So the opportunity to play for a third SEC championship in a row, I'm gonna put them at 3. Um, Number 4, and that is a tough one. I'm gonna say I guess for number 4, I'm gonna go Ohio State. Um, Now, of course, assuming they win tomorrow, I think they'd be the solid 4 for me. Um, I never thought I'd see the day when an undefeated Oklahoma is 6. I mean, normally when Oklahoma's undefeated this deep into the season, they're in the top 3. But I don't know. I don't know exactly what they're looking for in the
Okay.
rankings then. I mean, pretty much it looks like Georgia, Michigan, and Ohio State are ranked according to last year, is what it looks like to me. And that's the way they always rank those teams. So whatever. But I think Ohio State's my number 4. I'm not gonna I'd put Michigan at 6 or 7. I don't think they're number 2 at all.
I'm not putting Washington at 4. Um,
Mm.
so here's my number 1 team,
Mm.
and this is what I'm basing it on. They won 40 out of 41 games, 2 straight national championships. Until somebody beats them, they're the best team. I got
Mm.
Georgia at number 1.
Mm.
For number 2, I've got Florida State.
Okay.
For number 3, I've got Oklahoma.
Okay.
For number 4, I've got Ohio State.
Okay. Yeah, we're pretty much on point with the exception of Georgia.
Yeah,
I
and
think I think I think their history only gets them in the top 3, not the number 1 spot. Yeah, I'm grading them on their performance this season, and I'm not feeling them at number 1.
are you confident to talk about anybody that you think maybe Heisman contenders? I'm really not. I'd have to get study up on some stats.
Well, one thing I don't want is I don't want a style point Heisman winner, which
Yeah,
it does seem that's what always ends up there. You got guys like, Bo Nix over there that's probably throwing bombs all the time, which, just a lot of teams don't do that. And I mean, beating up on teams that are already beaten and racking up their touchdowns and stats and stuff like that. And because I mean, that's exactly when a commentator or somebody like that starts talking about about those amazing stats that they've got. They never mention whether it was a 64 to nothing game or a game against like one of the weaker teams and they just ran up the score. And so I really can't stand it when people run scores up all the way to the Heisman stage. I want to see. I wish they did it after the season was over, honestly, because I'd like to see how these players perform in the postseason against other
I
actual
think that's a good point. I think
better
that's a very good.
teams. Because
Yeah,
I
to see
mean,
how they do in the
like for
playoffs.
instance, okay, so the year Kyler Murray won the Heisman, he lost to Alabama in the semifinal, and I mean he didn't have a great performance. So
Well, remember that game, he brought them back because they
And
were
he
down
did bring
20.
him back. But Alabama did
Yeah,
what
but
Alabama always
I
does.
lost.
When they go up big like that early, they get ready for the next game.
I lost like 2 quarters because I was sitting there. It's the
Mhm.
beginning of the second quarter. It's 28-0. And then next thing I know, we're in the third quarter and it's 31-20. I'm like, hey, this is turned back. What the hell happened? This is turned back into a game.
It was all kind of
Um,
the same as how they did with Arkansas last week.
yeah.
But you can't do that, man. You can't. I mean, don't run up the score, but run it up until they just stop fighting. But
Do you realize that Nick Saban just won his 225th game at Alabama or 200th game at Alabama?
yeah.
Coach Bryant won 225 games at Alabama.
Okay.
I
So
mean,
you
I
think
think
he's gonna
it's providing his health doesn't go south. I think he's going to get
he
that
needs well, I guess he only needs 2 more seasons.
if they perform at that level.
Especially is that then that's games altogether, not just regular
No,
season,
no, no,
right?
no, no, no. That's
Total
his.
games.
That's all his games, bowl games at Alabama, not at
Okay.
the other schools. Yeah, he won 323 overall, but he won 225 at Alabama. And I think in the back of his mind, he wants that.
Yeah. He's gonna go for that record. I mean, if that was 200 and this season's only half over, so he's got 6 more he can put up. And then you got SEC championship and either playoff or a bowl game. So he's got an opportunity to get 7 more wins, 7 or 8 this year. Then
And I think he's
but
dying to get a 7th championship at Alabama.
I
I
don't
mean, he's
think he'll
already
leave
got
before he
7.
gets another one.
Huh?
I don't think he leaves before he gets another one.
You don't think he leaves before he gets another one? Or you don't think
Correct.
he'll have another one?
No, I said I don't think he leaves without getting another one.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. I mean, he'll coach for 5 years if he has to.
Well, I mean, he's a youthful 72 years old. I mean, it's not like he reminds you of some old decrepit man out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he's a youthful 72. Seems like this season's reinvigorated him. Um, so we'll see. Um, that's about all I got, man. Is there anything else you want to add to it?
No, man. Sorry, I'm a little out of it. I'm on pain meds for my surgery, so I'm a little foggy.
All right.
But
We'll call it a night. We'll chat for just a second offline.
all right.